Lenovo's Legion 9 is the best 18-inch gaming laptop I've ever tested. It's got record-breaking performance, an insane amount of upgrade options, and the first 4K 240Hz screen I've ever seen with a 1080p 440Hz mode. This thing is an absolute beast, no doubt about it. But there are some serious compromises that you need to know about. The Legion 9 is all black, with its most eye-catching feature being the forged carbon lid, which gives it a unique finish. Lenovo says the lid has a soft painted finish, and it feels a little rubbery rather than metallic. The rest of the laptop, including interior and bottom panel, are aluminum, and build quality feels extremely solid compared to most other laptops, with very little keyboard deck flex, while the lid is built like a tank. There's quite a bit of RGB lighting, including the Legion logo on the lid, the front light bar that wraps around the sides, and of course the keyboard. But you can customize the lighting quite a bit, or turn it off if the gamer vibe isn't for you. The front light bar is a stealthy silver when its lights are out, and you can instantly turn the lid logo off if you don't want someone walking by to judge your life choices. The front of the lid sticks out, making it very easy to grip, and the hinges feel insanely tight. Despite that, the laptop never lifted up off of the desk when opening, but it was more likely to move back with the additional force required to open it up. This results in the screen feeling extremely sturdy. There's zero wobble, even when typing hard, and the hinges feel nice and smooth and don't flex much even if you push the lid back too far or rip the lid open way too fast. The lid and the interior do a decent job of hiding fingerprints, and they're both easy to clean with a microfiber cloth. 18-inch gaming laptops are huge, and that definitely applies to the Legion too, but it's not as thick compared to most of the other 18-inch competition. I mean, there are a few smaller 16-inch laptops that are chunkier. The laptop by itself weighs in at 8.2 pounds or 3.7 kilos, increasing to 11 pounds or 5 kilos with the 400-watt charger included. There's no getting around it. The Legion 9 is a heavy gaming laptop, which probably explains why it's broken so many of our performance records. More weight means more material for cooling and more room for features. The Legion 9 I've got is basically tied for the heaviest gaming laptop we've ever tested with Alienware's M18R2 from last gen, but it's worth noting that the one without the 3D screen is 250 grams lighter than this one. My configuration has Nvidia's RTX 5090 laptop GPU, Intel's Core Ultra 9 275HX processor, 64 gigs of RAM, and the first 18-inch 4K 240Hz screen I've ever seen. But you can also run the screen at 440Hz for esports gaming, or in 3D mode. More on that later. There are a few different configurations of Legion 9 to choose from with the link below, and if it has a good sale, we'll list it on our gaminglaptop.deals website so you can save money. Link below. The keyboard has per key RGB backlighting, and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. Holding the function key highlights the available shortcuts. There are 3 levels of key brightness with the function and up and down arrow keys, and you can swap through the first 6 lighting effects with the function and spacebar shortcut. These keyboard shortcuts control all RGB lighting together, so keyboard, front light bar, and the lid logo. The Legion Space software gives you more lighting customization, with 9 brightness levels and even more effects. You can drag the effects around, and the function plus spacebar shortcut will cycle through the first 6. It is possible to set different lighting effects to the keyboard, front bar, and lid logo if you make your own effect. The keyboard has 1.6mm of key travel, and I like the clicky feel of the presses. The glass touchpad is smooth, accurate, feels great to type with, and has a quiet click. There are front-facing speakers on either side of the keyboard, and some underneath towards the front on the left and right sides. I thought they sounded great. They're clear with decent bass, and there's almost no wrist rest vibration at full volume. The Latencymon results weren't great in our 5-minute idle test. Port selection is great. Not many laptops have 3 USB-A and C ports, with at least one on each side. But it could have been better if we could charge over Type-C from either side. It's left only. And having the ports closer to the front when there aren't even side air exhaust vents is a missed opportunity. Bulkier cables like power and HDMI run out of the back and stay out of the way. Though, unlike previous Legions, we don't get any port icons to make plugging in easier. All of the display outputs connect directly to the NVIDIA graphics, so perfect if you want to use VR or get max FPS in games. But it would have been nice to have at least one going to the iGPU, so you don't have to use as much power if you're connecting a monitor to do lighter work. Getting inside requires removing 11 Phillips head screws, all the same length. I found it easy to open from the side towards the back with pry tools. I'll leave a link to these ones I use below. Once inside, we've got the battery down the front, 4 memory slots just above near the middle, the installed M.2 SSD to the right of that, 3 spare M.2 slots on the far left for upgrades, and the Wi-Fi 7 card hiding underneath this cover. You've got to remove a metal cover on the fan to get to the Wi-Fi card. A little annoying, but not too hard for something you may never do. Only the one M.2 slot with the SSD supports 4 lanes of PCIe Gen 5. The other 3 M.2 slots support 4 lanes of Gen 4, and I confirmed all 4 slots can fit drives with chips on both sides, so you can have storage for days. And all 4 slots have thermal pads for cooling. The 4 memory slots support up to 192 gigs of RAM, but it will run at the slower DDR5 4000 speed once you go over 3 sticks. Even my 2 32 gig sticks for 64 gigs total is limited to DDR5 5200, even though it's using 5600 sticks. This is just a limitation of Intel's memory controller. There's a speed trade-off for more capacity. Speeds from the installed 2TB PCIe Gen 5 SSD are insane. Really impressive stuff here. The SD card slot pretty much maxes out my V90 rated card too. The card clicks in and sits most of the way into the laptop, so you don't have to worry about bumping it. Wi-Fi performs about where expected. A great result, and in line with other Intel/killer Wi-Fi options tested. The upgrade score is excellent, as this is one of the very rare laptops that has both room for 4 M.2 storage slots and 4 memory slots. The Legion 9 is powered by a 99 watt-hour battery. Adaptive refresh rate was disabled by default in the Legion Space software, but you can turn it on to automatically lower the screen's refresh rate to 75 Hz when you unplug the charger to save power. This is why the screen flashes black, and it goes back to 240 Hz when you plug back in. You can also limit the battery's maximum charge level to 80% in the Vantage software to help the battery last longer, as keeping it fully charged all the time can degrade it. But this can't be enabled at the same time as rapid charge, and you can also make the battery charge slower overnight. Battery life was excellent as far as 18-inch gaming laptops go. All the other ones we've tested lasted for far less than this one in the YouTube video playback test. The Legion is also an above average result for a laptop with an Intel HX processor, so this really was a pleasant surprise. It lost 21% of its battery charge while asleep for 24 hours, but this isn't a fair comparison with the other laptops, as it depends on the size of the laptop's battery. Here's how much battery power was lost on average per hour, which is a fair comparison, and it burned through more power compared to most others, though it wasn't too bad if we're just comparing against the other 18-inch models. Let's check out thermals next. The CPU and GPU are covered by a vapor chamber cooler, and those use the 2 fans at the back corners. The smaller fans blow out over the vapor chamber without actually being connected to it, and over the RAM. There are holes in the bottom panel directly over the fans for air intake, and air only gets exhausted out of the back, so no hot air blasting your mouse hands. Legion Space lets us swap between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are quiet, balance, performance, and custom. Performance and custom modes automatically apply this overclock to the GPU to boost performance, and this unknown amount of CPU overclock also gets applied. You've got the option of using using it in balance mode, but not quiet mode. In custom mode, you can either enable extreme mode or create your own profile to tweak power and temperature limits. We've tested custom in both extreme mode and with everything maxed out to see the differences. The power button stays on one of these colors so you can always know which performance mode you're in, and you can swap between them at any time with the function plus Q shortcut. The internal temperatures are fine at idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst case full load scenario. Temps get warmer with the higher performance modes, with performance mode being significantly warmer compared to balance mode below it. Custom modes were slightly cooler than performance mode, and running with the lid closed was much the same as lid open, so no problem if you want to dock the laptop. Using a basic metal stand was warmer though, which is something weird we've found with all Lenovo laptops in this workload this year. According to Lenovo, the fans are designed to work best in the most common position of being pressed close to a flat surface like a desk. The cooling pad I test with, linked below, wasn't effective unless the fans are set way too loud. Performance in custom modes pretty much always ran the CPU at 126 watts or so, with the GPU maxed out at the same time, which is crazy high. That's a lot of power, which means lots of performance from the Legion 9. The NVIDIA control panel says the 5090 can boost up to 175 watts with dynamic boost, but we found it to run closer to 150 watts in this test. Though strangely, with the lid closed and a monitor connected to the HDMI port, it ran up to 160 watts. In any case, with our actual game tests, we found the GPU to run around 170 watts no problem when the processor isn't quite this loaded up. There's just not really a practical difference in CPU or GPU clock speeds between performance or custom modes, and messing around with the stands and cooling pads didn't really seem worthwhile. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use at the screen's native resolution. I've got the native results in purple and DLSS upscaling on performance in red to boost performance. Running with a Type-C charger was unusable, but maybe that'd be slightly better with Lenovo's proprietary 140 watt charger. Ours is limited to 100 watts. For some reason, DLSS in custom mode set to max was lower. I'm guessing this is some kind of bug, because we can reproduce it, and for whatever reason, the GPU runs at around 106 watts, and the CPU at 30 to 40 watts, whereas Extreme was 167 watts on the GPU and 80 on the CPU. Anyway, that strangeness aside, performance in custom modes performed much the same for the most part. The CPU can use more power in a CPU-only workload like Cinebench, where the GPU is idle. Running up to 180 watts is crazy stuff, and there's not really a performance difference between custom or performance modes. Running on Type-C charge was worse than quiet mode with the 400 watt charger, but the result is better than what we saw while gaming. The Legion 9 has broken our record for best multi-core score in this test, and it's 24% higher compared to the lowest score we've had from this processor but in a thinner laptop. So it just goes to show how much of a difference power limits make to performance, despite both laptops having the same processor on the spec sheet, and a 64% multi-core boost over the Gen 9 version of Legion 9 isn't bad either. Performance lowers when we unplug the charger and run on battery power, but it's still one of the better results out of the laptops tested. It's still the best result we've got from an 18-inch laptop. Most of those seem to lose a ton of performance on battery power, but not the Legion. Granted, it is now beaten by a 13-inch tablet. As for keyboard temps, most laptops I test are in the low 30 degrees Celsius range on the keyboard at idle. The Legion was in line with this, but the wrist rest area still felt a bit warmer than most others because it's metal and absorbs heat. It gets warmer with the stress test running, but we're only talking about mid-30s in the center. It's nowhere near feeling uncomfortable. The higher balance mode was much the same, still relatively cool, as the fans get louder to compensate for the higher power levels. Performance mode was a little warmer right in the middle of the keyboard, but we're barely cracking 40 degrees Celsius. The middle area only feels a little warm and not uncomfortable. Custom extreme mode was fairly similar, but again, the fans get louder to tackle the extra power to prevent it feeling hotter. And there's no difference with custom mode maxed out because we found it to perform very similarly to just using custom extreme mode. The keyboard hotspot wasn't bad at all, but bigger laptops like this do have more room for cooling, and to be fair, the fans in extreme mode are basically maxed out in this workload. Let's have a listen. The fans were silent when idling in quiet mode, and they get louder when under load in the higher modes, with custom extreme and manually maxing them out in custom being the same. The custom modes had a perceived loudness 28% higher than performance mode, and given performance mode still offers the same results in games, it's a much better sweet spot. But in the highest mode without explicitly maxing out the fans, which is how we compare laptops, the Legion 9 was one of the louder options, though similar to a number of other 18-inch gaming laptops we've tested. Alright, we need to talk about the screen, because it's got a few tricks. The Legion 9 has two IPS screen options, so there's no OLED or mini LED here, but it might not matter. Both panel options are 18-inch 3840 by 2400 with a 240Hz refresh rate, making this the first 4K screen I've ever had above 144Hz. The only difference between the two panel options is the 3D version I've got is rated at just 20 nits lower. If I look closely at the screen, it sorta looks like it has some sort of extra layer or something, so that might be why the brightness is slightly lower. Color gamut is great, similar to what we'd see from a mini LED panel, and not far from what OLED offers. Contrast is fairly average for an IPS panel, but this one has a glossy screen rather than standard matte, which to me makes it look like higher contrast than we measured. Of course, the usual note about glossy screens. If you're working in a bright environment, they will show reflections, which can be annoying. We measured brightness just below Lenovo's listed 500 nits, with no real difference between SDR or HDR modes, and it can get super dim, which might be useful at night. 500 nits is solid, and better compared to most of the OLED panels we've tested, but generally not as bright compared to mini LED options, including Lenovo's last-gen Legion 9i, back when it had a 16-inch mini LED screen. Backlight bleed was extremely minor and not a problem at all, but this will vary between panels. By default, dynamic response time, aka overdrive, was disabled in the Legion Space software, so out of the box, we're looking at a 7 millisecond average gray-to-gray screen response time, which is slower than the ideal 4.16 milliseconds a 240Hz panel needs for transitions to occur within the refresh window. Fortunately, if we enable the overdrive mode, the response time drops to 3.8 milliseconds. However, the software does note that the response time speedup feature doesn't work when G-Sync is enabled. But wait, there's more. We can go into the BIOS to change the screen from 3840 by 2400 240Hz to 1920 1200 440Hz, presumably for competitive esports gaming. There's no shortcut for this in the software. Hopefully they make it easier and add it in a future update. Anyway, we found the 1200p 440Hz mode to lower some of the rise times. That's the dark to light transitions to under 2 milliseconds, though on average we're only looking at a 0.4 millisecond faster time compared to just running the panel at the 4K 240Hz mode. It's a fast result compared to all other 18-inch gaming laptops tested so far. Mini LED panels are often slower, as it takes longer for their dimming zones to light up. And as of right now, in September 2025, there aren't any 18-inch OLED panels for laptops. So if you want those faster response times, you'll need to look at a smaller laptop. Total system latency was low. This is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire shows up on screen in Counter-Strike 2. It's not quite the fastest 18 18-inch laptop with a screen running at 240Hz, but it smashes our record by almost a millisecond if we run the panel at 440Hz. An excellent result for competitive players. The Legion 9 has advanced Optimus, allowing you to automatically get better FPS in games without a reboot. It's also got the classic Mach switch, but that needs a reboot, and considering it doesn't change which GPU the ports connect to, there's no real point using it. G-Sync is available with Optimus off, and Adaptive Sync is available from the integrated graphics when Optimus is on, so no screen tearing however you play, at least when it's above 100 FPS. But what about the 3D screen thing? Is that just a gimmick? Well, the supported games list isn't massive at just 30 titles right now, but in the few games I tested, the 3D effect looked kinda cool, especially considering you don't need a headset or glasses for it to work. It works by using the camera to track your eyes. The 3840 by 2400 screen renders 2 images at 1920 by 1200, so one for each eye, which is what gives the 3D effect and also makes it very difficult to capture on camera. I suspect it will depend on the game, but in God of War Ragnarok, it's not great if you're just standing still and pixel peeping. The text doesn't look quite right for me, though I wasn't quite able to calibrate it perfectly for my eyes. But once you're in motion and moving around, the effect is pretty good, and it does feel more immersive. Outside of gaming, there's support for these 3D modeling software suites. Would I personally pay $260 more for the 3D screen that adds on 250 grams of extra weight? Probably not, but at the same time, I don't think this feature falls into the gimmick bucket either. I think it just needs to support a wider selection of games and apps. And realistically, if you're already spending $4,000 to $5,000 on this gaming laptop, the 5% higher price tag for the 3D screen isn't really much extra. There's a 1440p camera above the screen in the middle. It has IR for Windows Hello Face Unlock. This is how it sounds like while typing on the keyboard. And like other Lenovo Legion laptops, it has the privacy shutter switch on the side of the laptop. Alright, let's find out how well Lenovo's maxed out Legion 9i performs in games. We've tested it with these settings. Cyberpunk 2077 was 8% faster compared to the next best result, MSI's Titan 18, at 1080p ultra settings. This is likely a result of the Legion's higher CPU power limit, which was running at 125 watts in this game compared to the Titan's 106 or so. The CPU starts to matter less at higher resolutions, and at 1440p, the average FPS is tied with their smaller Legion Pro 7i for first place. They're close at 4K too, with the Legion 9 just edging out the Legion Pro 7i for first place, though the differences are well within the margin of error range. The Legion 9 took first place in Alan Wake 2 at 1080p high settings too, though there's only a small 4% lead over their smaller Legion Pro 7i. But hey, winning's winning. The Legion 9 has broken our record at 1440p and 4K too. Very impressive stuff. But don't forget, this is also one of the heaviest gaming laptops we've ever tested, at just 10 grams less than Alienware's M18R2 from last gen. Black Myth Wukong lost out on first place at 1080p high settings to the smaller Legion Pro 7i, but like before, the difference is pretty small. The 9 just edges out the 7 for best result out of all laptops tested so far at 1440p, and it gets the win at 4K too. 50 FPS might not sound impressive, but don't forget this is without upscaling features like DLSS. Performance with ray tracing on and upscaling enabled was great too. Just like the non-RT results, the Legion 9i was often the fastest gaming laptop we've ever tested, and where it gets beaten, it's to Lenovo's own smaller Legion Pro 7i. The Pro 7i might be shunt modded, as discovered by Brandon from the Gizmo Slip Tech channel, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case with the higher end 9 too. It would certainly explain why both laptops are easily beating all other RTX 5090 laptops. Here are the 3D Mark results. Performance in content creator workloads was great, but in most cases, not quite as chart-topping compared to the gaming results. Still, Still, with a big good-looking screen, up to 192 gigs of RAM, and fast SD card slot, the Legion 9i would make a great creator machine, especially if you would benefit from the 3D screen option. There's a lot of customization available through the BIOS compared to most other laptop brands, except for perhaps MSI, who just have an insane amount of options. There's even undervolting and overclocking support if you want to get shooting. Linux support was good overall, but the speakers were extremely quiet and unusable out of the box, and only the Function plus R shortcut to change the refresh rate didn't work. Pricing and availability will change over time, so check the links below the video for updates and to see if there are any current sales. Because if the Legion 9 does have a good sale, we'll add it to our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include all of the best sales, so make sure you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. At the time of recording in September, without any sales, the cheapest configuration of Legion 9i with RTX 5080 graphics starts from almost $3,800 US. The exact configuration I've tested in this video with 64 gigs of RAM, 3D screen, and 5090 graphics will set you back close to $5,000, while the maxed out version with 192 gigs of RAM and extra SSD is over $5,700. That's kind of insane, but this is also a very unique laptop. So let's summarize the good and the bad to find out if it's worth it. Starting with the good, the Legion 9 offers record-breaking performance, both in games and raw CPU tests, with plenty of tuning options available in software and BIOS. The 18-inch 4K 240Hz panel is as fast as we can get at this size until 18-inch OLEDs become a thing, and the optional 1200p 440Hz mode is a nice extra for esports players. Build quality feels solid with a unique design, the speakers sound great and are better than most, and battery life was surprisingly good for an 18-inch Intel HX laptop. It's got plenty of ports, the upgrade options are insane, and the optional 3D screen is interesting for something different, but probably has niche uses for most people. As for the bad, this thing is heavy. You could replace Gym Day with carrying the Legion around. The fans get fairly loud in custom mode, but you can find a better sweet spot with lower fan noise that still offers good performance with the lower modes. The ports on the sides could be a bit further back, and having Type-C charge support on either side would have been nicer. Battery drain while asleep is higher than most, but you could always hibernate instead, and memory speeds drop as capacity increases, though that didn't seem to matter much given the performance records it still broke. Bottom line, if you're after a bigger 18-inch gaming laptop with record-breaking performance, an insane level of future upgradability, better battery life compared to its competition, and a unique screen that's faster than the rest with optional esports and 3D modes, get the Legion 9. But if you're not made of money, or you care more about portability, or you would prefer an OLED or mini LED screen, then the Legion 9 probably isn't for you. If you want similar performance to the Legion 9, but in a smaller laptop, then check out Lenovo's smaller Legion Pro 7i here. But if you're set on 18 inches, I'd recommend ASUS's Scar 18, as it's the only other 18-inch gaming laptop I've tested this year that I would personally consider. I'll see you in one of those next.